Alright, why is Risk of Rain 2 so replayable? Well, there are so many reasons why Risk of Rain 2 is replayable, but ultimately I feel like it comes down to how perfected the core mechanics of the game are, and so I'll be structuring this video around those core mechanics. I'll make timestamps for the different elements so you can skip to them if you want to, but here are the core mechanics that I think make Risk of Rain 2 great. Easy to pick up, third-person combat that not only rewards skill, but is also incredibly satisfying, in-run progression that makes you truly feel like every item makes you more powerful, multiple challenges and achievements to complete, and a wealth of different survivors and items to master and learn about. We'll start with the most impactful element in my opinion, which in this case is the third-person combat. I wait for the day to come where more developers realize how intuitive and rewarding Risk of Rain's style of combat is. I really want to see this system replicated in more roguelikes, more open world games, and more action games, because I think this combat system mixes all the elements of a good combat system together. The combination of easy to use abilities is perfectly balanced with hard to master decision making. What I mean by that is that you can easily pick up the game and understand what your abilities do, but mastering how to take on different enemy types, the timing of attacks, and especially the importance of movement and how to make the most out of your survivor's utility abilities and movement items, all of this will take the most time to master. I stand by the easy to use ability statement, but that would be doing a disservice to understanding how to make the most of those abilities, and this element of depth is one of the reasons why this style of combat is so fun. Choices you make in combat matter, and forcing the player to think more about how they move and use their abilities will automatically engage them in the run. We all love us some smooth brain Vampire Survivors gameplay, but it's also really fun to have to make smart plays and then of course reap the rewards from it. And you know what? I'm not even close to mastering this game. I have over 200 hours but still constantly make mistakes or overestimate my abilities, and I think that alone is testament to its replayability. But beyond the skill and knowledge involved, people will still enjoy playing the game just because the combat is so satisfying. You know how you can usually tell in a game when something is satisfying, like for Call of Duty, there's the iconic hit sound and hit marker, and that's just one element of why the multiplayer is so fun? Well, Risk of Rain 2 has that type of satisfaction in spades. The sound design of ticks of damage, critical hits, your abilities, opening chests, and more are so well done. So is the way the health bar goes down, the way your abilities come out of your survivor, every animation, sound, or action performed is designed to make you feel good, and then this becomes exponentially better as you get more and more powerful throughout the run. And at some point, your items start taking over the run for you. You're attacking so fast because you've stacked up tons of syringes, you have 100% crit chance, rockets are coming out of you like no tomorrow, and your ukuleles are proccing every item you own again and again in groups of enemies. And when it all comes together, this style of combat is simply perfection. This absolutely plays a part in replayability because coming back to combat that is so satisfying is a no-brainer. That element of fun is core to why people can play this game without caring about any of the extra challenges. But to circle it all back, the combat still takes skill, and within Risk of Rain 2 you have a good mix of abilities and passives. Each survivor will have different strengths and weaknesses in combat, and figuring out the best synergies with items and the best way to use those abilities is part of the fun, and it's something I'll talk about later when I talk about the different survivors. But I feel like I needed to reinforce just how smooth and intuitive Risk of Rain 2's combat really is, because I feel like it might go unnoticed as a part of the replayability. Next, I want to shed light on the element of the game that provokes the most dopamine out of you. That magical moment when your items start to come together in harmonious synergy. I mentioned this earlier, but to go deeper, the big reason why this system of progression is done so well is because there is tangible and visual evidence of your progression in a run in Risk of Rain 2. Every item you get will provide you with a noticeable difference in your actions in combat, movement, or passive stats. And this is crucial to making sure even if you low roll a Lepton Daisy out of a big chest, you know that when it comes time for the teleporter, you're getting that healing Nova, and maybe it helps you more than you think. But then you high roll an ATG or ukulele, maybe grab yourself a shrimp or a polyloot, and you'll absolutely notice a difference in power. The rockets come flying out of you and fly towards an enemy, polyloots and shrimps sound absolutely insane, and seeing ukulele lightning proc in a big group of enemies absolutely is insane. So in that sense, I think that the progression system in a run is made incredibly well as it shows you that you are becoming more powerful. But it's also really well balanced. In Risk of Rain 2, the longer you spend in the run, the harder the game gets. So prioritizing items over time or vice versa is a decision you'll have to make. You can't just farm every stage for all of its chests and expect to have a clean run. Of course, this is if you are playing without the Artifact of Command, which is a modifier for the run that lets you choose the items you get out of chests, but without that, the game balances your power level really well, but that absolutely doesn't stop you from getting a god run going. RNG can definitely be in your favor, and sometimes by the end of stage 1, you can just tell it's going to be a good run. And this pursuit of power is why Risk of Rain 2 is so replayable. There's just such a pure dopamine rush when everything comes together and seeing that progression of your run in real time. I'm not really sure how else to articulate how satisfying it is to constantly be increasing in power and to be shown that increase visually. I think it's worth pointing out that you can scrap items with a scrapper and then use that scrap on printers to give yourself more desirable items, and that definitely plays a part in making sure you feel like you have more control over how your run plays out, and giving a player that sense of meaningful choice is important. But to summarize this point, power increase in Risk of Rain 2 is shown to you, and in spectacular form might I add, but it's also balanced so that the challenge still remains, and choices you make in the run will definitely affect how your run plays out. One of the best things about Risk of Rain 2 is its variety. For me, the most fun variety within the game is the wealth of different survivors, each with their own repertoire of abilities to choose from and understand. I said before that I was far from mastering the game, and one of the reasons for this is how long it takes to understand the intricacies of each survivor, and trust me, there is a nuance to each survivor despite what your initial hours of the game might show you. I think this was most apparent to me in trying to figure out how best to utilize Acrid. My friends and I have been trying to run through the Eclipse difficulties, and I needed to find a way to keep my survivability and damage up, but I couldn't figure out whether I should use Blight or Poison, whether I should be going in melee range or shying away from it, and just stacking poison on enemies from afar. I was kind of at a loss trying to figure out how to do the most that I could. Eventually, I caved and searched up some tips and tricks for Acrid. I scoured the wiki and came to the conclusion that Poison would be my go-to, and I would purposely pick up items like tri-tip daggers to deal the remaining lethal damage. Combine this with Visions of Heresy, an item that changes my primary into a longer range attack, and I could confidently apply Poison from far and not end up accidentally killing myself from going in closer melee range. In this example, I learned not only about how to utilize my abilities, but also what items synergize with my goals, and I think that's the other beautiful thing about Risk of Rain 2 is how intricate the synergy and combination of items can become. And even this far into my Risk of Rain 2 career, I'm still learning about new ways to break the game or cool new synergies. The array of items to learn about in Risk of Rain 2 is big enough to create variety in each run, but succinct enough that you won't be overwhelmed with too much to learn. But there is a lot to learn in the details. One trip to the wiki and you'll go down a rabbit hole as you learn about all the items, their synergies, and how exactly they all work. I think the best example I can give of learning about items is the lunar items. These are items the bulk of which provide a positive and a negative, but the negative isn't always that bad on certain survivors, or maybe there's a special synergy you're going to go for that requires a certain lunar item to work. The most obvious example here is getting yourself a lot of Gestures of the Drowned. Your equipment automatically goes off, but you halve the cooldown, so you can just grab yourself 18 Gestures of the Drowned and a disposable missile launcher, and you'll be firing missiles constantly. The point I'm trying to make is there is so much crazy shit to learn in this game, and this plays a huge role in replayability. Whether it's a new survivor to play or a new item synergy, Risk of Rain 2 excels in bringing you back and encourages you to find new ways to break the game, and I think Hopu did a fantastic job at encouraging people to do that exact thing. People don't like to be restricted, so allowing for crazy combos to learn about is a good way to keep people entertained. And finally, the most pure element of replayability are all the challenges, achievements, and unlocks that exist in the game. When you first start playing, you'll have to complete certain things to unlock all the different items and of course characters, but I believe that the game only just begins once you've done all that. I think the thing that might take the most effort for players is unlocking all the different survivor abilities. Each survivor except the Void Fiend has alternate abilities, but they first have to be unlocked, and there are some reasonable requirements and then some unreasonable requirements. Listen, I'll be honest, for my 100%, I did a few of these on Drizzle or with the Artifact of Command, and I absolutely do not regret it because now I have full access to the wide range of abilities to see which ones I like the most, and to be honest, I think that's enough. I didn't mod them in, I did all the challenges legitimately, just, on the easier difficulties. I'd say the next challenge a newer player will take on is Monsoon difficulty, and once you've done this, I highly recommend never playing on any other difficulty, since after a while Monsoon will make you a smarter and stronger player, and it's not that hard to begin with, I don't think. After that, you'll end up doing all the challenges to get all the artifacts, and artifacts definitely play a role in replayability, giving you options for crazy modifiers for each run, and you can put them together for some pretty wacky combos, and sometimes these combos can actually be seriously difficult. Then, if you want to put yourself through extra pain, you can always try completing the 8 Eclipse difficulties on all survivors individually. As I said earlier, we've been running through these as a group, but as a solo player, I have a feeling it might be far more punishing. Eclipse is the standard game mode on Monsoon difficulty, but with one extra modifier each increase in Eclipse level. To me, the Eclipse levels are one of the few extra challenges in a game that make me actually consider why I'm trying to complete them. Kind of like Ascension levels in Slay the Spire, but for Risk of Rain 2, the Eclipse levels don't reward me with anything. No achievement, no item, no character. The only reward I get is essentially a ticked box next to that character's name, and for some reason that's enough for me. If you've played a lot of Risk of Rain 2, I'd encourage you to give these challenges a go for no other reason than to get one up on the game. These Eclipse levels have added a layer of replayability to this game that I never thought I'd go for, but I'm happy that I have. With the Survivors of the Void DLC, the Voidling was added, which is an extra boss you can fight after defeating Mithrix, and the Voidling's not the only secret boss or location in the game either. Anyway, beyond that, you have the infinitely scaling Simulacrum. That's a fun extra mode that throws infinitely spawning enemies at you until you die. Pretty cool. And then there's some daily challenges if you want to complete them as well. So between the Simulacrum, Monsoon, Eclipse, Voidling, and the daily challenges, there's a lot to come back to challenge yourself. And as I said in my Hades video, these challenges do a great job of feeling rewarding and are good reasons to come back, just because they push you to the limit and make you better. In fact, Risk of Rain 2 is one of those games that has taught me that it can still be fun and worth playing even after I've completed all the achievements, and for me, that's saying something. And that's it. If you wanted to go deeper, you can always mod the game and have fun with the craziness over there. Risk of Rain mods are insane and incredibly varied, so you shouldn't be let down. But yeah, awesome game that's been well worth whatever I paid for it. So subscribe if you enjoyed, I would seriously appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter and on Twitch. Have a great day and see you later.